She mixed milk powder containing ants with sleeping pills together, and after heating it, she fed it to her child. This was because she was in a hurry to go on a date with her boyfriend and found it inconvenient to bring the child along. What this woman didn't know was that her husband, although he appeared honest, was actually a ruthless person. The ending of this movie is sure to make you clap your hands in excitement. While the woman was on a date with her boyfriend, her husband returned home. This man is called Chui. He saw something unusual in the baby's bottle, picked it up, and took a closer look, and to his surprise, it was ants inside. Chui quickly came to the child's side. He touched his daughter's forehead and found that she had a fever. Chui promptly took his daughter to the hospital. While the doctor was giving her an injection, Chui shed tears of heartache. He could no longer endure his wife. It turns out he had long known about his wife's actions. However, Chui had a hobby. He enjoyed reading crime novels. This hobby, in fact, allowed him to ingeniously resolve the situation involving his wife and her boyfriend. Chui's wife is named Paula. Paula is the dean of a training school. Her boyfriend, Jean, is a teacher at the school. Due to not having a job, Chui has become a full-time dad, taking care of the child at home during the day and cooking for Paula at night. On this day, while Paula and her boyfriend were flirting in the school office, they decided to go on a date later. Suddenly, a call came in from the reception desk saying that Chui had arrived. At that moment, Chui was at the office door. Paula opened the door to let Chui in, and Jean pretended to be organizing documents. Chui had actually suspected Paula for a while. Seeing their awkward expressions now, his suspicions grew even deeper. After work, when Chui drove Paula back, he asked Paula why she wasn't wearing shoes in the office. However, Paula brushed it off, saying he was nagging like a woman. She mentioned having something to do and said she would return home later. Then she asked Chui to park the car on the roadside. Later, Paula went to Jin's house, but she forgot to take her keys. This was because the keys to Jin's house and her car were together in the car, which Chui was currently driving. After Jean opened the door for her, they engaged in intimate physical contact. At this moment, Chui was staring at Paula's bunch of keys, lost in thought. He didn't remember having such keys at home. He suspected they were Jin's keys. To confirm his suspicions, the next day he went to Jin's house. The key went in smoothly, and he turned it forcefully to open the door. Chui's heart shattered, but what he was about to witness would be even more unbearable for him. After walking in, the first thing Chui noticed was the disheveled bed. He walked to a table and saw many photos on it. The protagonists in these photos were none other than his wife and Jean. There were even some disturbing images. Chui left in a daze. When he returned home, he looked at his child and decided to endure it. In the evening, when Paula finished work, Chui had already prepared dinner. He didn't expose Paula but instead asked her this question: "Is this the life you wanted?" Paula didn't respond directly, but instead said, "The dinner tonight is really delicious." The next day, Paula came to Jin's house again. She found that Jean had bought her a toothbrush and had also purchased many baby products. Paula was very angry because Jean wanted her to have his child. However, Paula had always wanted to maintain the current situation. She was afraid of Chui discovering their affair. In a fit of anger, she left the place. When she returned home, she noticed a photo of Jean next to her makeup mirror. Paula didn't know whether she had put it there herself or if Chui had already found out. In reality, it was Chui who had placed it there. He wanted to give his wife a chance. Paula decided to be a good wife and cut ties with Jean. She started cleaning and cooking voluntarily. As Chui sat on the couch, he observed Paula and sensed that something was off. During dinner, Paula spoke a few affectionate words to him, leading Chui to believe that Paula had turned over a new leaf, thanks to the photo he had placed. However, while they were having dinner, the home phone kept ringing. Chui answered the call, but no one spoke on the other end. Paula knew it must be Jean calling. She told Chui that the car had broken down and asked him to get it fixed. Once Chui left, the phone rang again. Paula picked up the call, and Jean said he wanted to meet her. Paula declined, suggesting they shouldn't meet anymore. However, Jean threatened her, claiming he was already at her doorstep. Paula was afraid Chui might see him, so she instructed Jean to go to a nearby cafe instead. However, the child kept refusing to sleep, and Chui wasn't at home. Paula found the sleeping pills in the house and mixed them into the milk powder. She didn't even notice the ants in the milk powder. Later, she fed the milk to the child, and even before finishing the milk, the child had fallen asleep. After that, she went to the cafe to talk to Jean and clarify things, wanting to end their relationship. But she oversimplified things. Ending a relationship is not that simple. The two of them started drinking here, and not long after, Chui returned home. He found Paula wasn't there and noticed the ants in the baby bottle. He quickly touched the child's forehead and realized that his daughter had a high fever. After taking the child to the hospital and undergoing examination, the doctor said that the child had consumed sleeping pills, combined with a fever caused by a bacterial infection. At this time, Paula and Jean had also had quite a bit to drink. Jean carried her back and they returned to Paula's home. Coincidentally, Chui also came back holding the child. he happened to see Paula and Jean saying their goodbyes. Chui hid himself and watched as Jean prepared to leave. When Jean took the elevator downstairs, Chui held the child and retreated upstairs, assuming that Jean had left. However, Jean didn't actually leave. He hesitated for a moment in the elevator and then turned back. Chui returned to the front door with the child, and after unlocking it with his key, he saw something he shouldn't have seen. To avoid disturbing them, Chui closed the door again. Do you think Chui is weak? You're mistaken. In fact, at this moment, he has already made up his mind to get rid of them. The next day, when Chui went to Jin's home, he wore gloves and collected a lot of hair from there. When Paula returned home in the evening and was removing her makeup, she saw a photo of herself in the mirror, and it was one taken previously at Jin's place. She was terrified and quickly called Jin, asking if he had placed the photo on her mirror. Suddenly, the power went out at home, and the call got disconnected. Paula was about to investigate when suddenly a hand grabbed her neck, pushing her onto the bed. Then, the person picked up the phone and called back Jin. It turned out to be Chui. After hanging up the phone, he took out a knife and stabbed Paula several times. That's how her life ended. Then, he took the hair he found at Jin's home and threw it onto Paula's body. Next, he grabbed a blood-soaked towel and left. Before leaving, he intentionally left the key on the door and wiped off any fingerprints. As Chui arrived downstairs, Jin hurriedly arrived as well. Meanwhile, Chui went to Jin's home and deliberately smeared Paula's blood on the bathroom doorknob. After completing these actions, Chui took a train to another city. The next day, he contacted a neighbor and explained that he couldn't reach his wife Paula. He asked her to go to his house and check. The neighbor arrived at Chui's house and found Paula's body. Soon after, the police sealed off the area, and Chui returned, appearing very anxious. At this moment, the police found several strands of hair on Paula's body and noticed that her fingers were broken. Jin had done this, as Paula was wearing the ring he had given her. Afraid of their affair being discovered, Jin broke Paula's fingers when removing the ring after her death. Soon, Jin was taken to the police station. All the evidence pointed to him as the one who killed Paula, and that's how Jin became a murderer. The case was quickly closed. Chui held the child and returned home. He looked at his wife's photo and started crying. In fact, Chui loved her deeply, but Paula's actions turned his love into hatred. Chui had forgiven her multiple times, but when Paula fed the child sleeping pills for her date, it completely ignited Chui's fuse. Do you think Chui's actions are right or wrong in this situation?